fault reports has two sides. The one that we talked about is data collection. So we use AI to understand unstructured and structure it into those fields. So that's one side of how do we use AI to learn and structure data. But the other side, we suddenly have a lot of data created, right? So every fault report, someone filled it. We have a line, right, in the tables that said the machine stopped for 87 minutes because, and it's all about systemizing, right? How do we get this data from their head to the tablet, right, or to the database? And that's an enormous effort to go through. And we need to find tools to do that. And again, here as well, AI is an awesome opportunity to take into that, right? So take a video, click a button, get an SOP. And then me as a new employee, I can come and use, like, we have an SKI tool, and use like an agent to ask it, the camera is not seeing any bottles. What should I do? And it uses the mental model. It's funny to say mental model, like the AI mental model, right? Of all of the faults until today, and tells you, oh, the most probable cause is like camera like lint.
Welcome to the AI in Manufacturing podcast here on Industry4All.tv. I'm your host, 𝗧𝗶𝗺𝗀𝘀. And in this episode, we will discuss all things related to empowering and enabling your manufacturing workforce with AI-powered manufacturing execution. And in this episode, I'm joined by Miki Shaposhnik, who is the Managing Director of 𝗧𝗶𝗺𝗀𝘀. Miki, welcome to the show.
𝗧𝗊.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, before we jump into the discussion for the day, could you please introduce yourself to our audience and tell us a bit about your background, and also give us an introduction into what is or who is 𝗧𝗶𝗺𝗀𝘀?
Perfect. I'll do my best. So again, thank you so much for having me here. So I'm Miki Shaposhnik. By the way, props for saying my last name on the first try perfectly. No one gets it right. So that's awesome.
Oh, that's good to know.
So props for that. So I'm Miki. A lot of years in the training industry. So I've built courses and e-learning and digital things for different types of manufacturers for the past 20 years. And about 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago, we started 𝗧𝗋+. And it started as a work instructions type of platform and grew to be full-blown MES. But we're not calling ourselves an MES. We're the anti-MES MES. That's how we see ourselves in this. And I guess we'll deep dive later about why we're the anti-MES and things like that. But we're mainly focused on the human factor on the MES side of things. So you have a lot of MESs that are more focused on machinery and machine connection, and we have this as well. But we're more focused on the human factor. That's us in a second.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Super exciting to really dive into exactly how you view the world of MES and anti-MES, as you like to put it. So Miki, I would like us to start by grounding our conversation in the reality of what's happening in manufacturing floors today. As you very well know, many manufacturers still rely on paper-based, even to this day, right? Paper-based communication and things like Excel spreadsheets all over the place. And from your perspective, first of all, could you kind of like unpack for us on what are the fundamental limitations of this traditional way of executing work, and secondly, paint a picture for us on what is the actual cost or the lost opportunity for manufacturers who stick to these outdated methods?
Sure. So it's always like mind-boggling to me that we're in 2025, right? And when you order a pizza, you go into the app and you see exactly where is the delivery guy is on the way to your house with the pizza. But when you go like into a manufacturing facility that's building airplanes, you still see paper that you have like the route card and someone sign off on a step in the route, and no one knows where it is until this paper is getting to the next person and physically moving. So I think that's the first limitation, right? Physical things by definition are harder to track, and of course they're like the black hole of data, right? So you have a form for faulty machines. Someone writes the form, even if he writes it in an Excel file, he writes it and then it's dead, right? So that's the core limitation, I think, of paper, of course, and some like of the very bare bone digital solutions that some of the manufacturers are using. And by that you get I forgot the word, like a lot of things that you lose because of that. So you can't analyze this data easily. It's harder for the employee to input this data. And we're trying to build tools, and not only us, I'm talking about the industry, right? Trying to build tools to reduce friction on how to get this data and how to get this data actionable. And paper is the like number one killer of this opportunity, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, when we talk about collecting data, data integration and things like that for manufacturing digitalization or digital transformation or whatever you want to call it, there's always, at least in my experience, there's always this temptation to focus on more advanced use cases, right? And yet, when you look at like a big chunk of manufacturers today, they could actually gain some significant improvements by simply getting real-time visibility, right? Just knowing what's happening where. And like as the saying goes, you can't really improve what you can't measure, right? And the main
It's like,
challenge
where's the pizza guy, right? Where's the machine? Where's the part?
exactly
The basics of basics.
Exactly. And I think this is kind of like really where the industry should be focusing on, getting that lowest hanging fruit as far as values is concerned. But the main challenge that I see there is that in many cases, this idea of data collection becomes a burden for operators, right? An operator really just wants to, take care of the operation. They don't want to really worry about having to collect data, model the data, and all these things that we, like to talk about. And many times they sort of like have to rely on IT to help with all of these activities. So I'd like to get your sense on what's your assessment on the current state of real-time data collection in manufacturing, and why is it important to close that gap or remove that friction of data collection, from the factory users in order to really start to digitalize?
Yeah. So I think before that, I want to say that it's a bit of our fault when we're all talking about Industry 4.0 and smart manufacturing and all of this, like really fifth grade, right, things, when the problems are, like you said, data collection. We're not even collecting the data. And even sometimes I see factories that are like on the second floor and they have like really cool digital forms inside their ERP or the MES. And I love this example. So let's say you have like a fault form, right? So you want to collect what is the type of fault. Is it mechanical or electrical or I don't know, human error or whatever? And it's a drop-down field. And I see in a lot of cases, like 90% of the data is the first option in the drop-down field. And that's only because people, like you said, don't have the time to fill the form. They want to do their operation things and not filling forms. So they just click the first thing, and then the data you're collecting is, there's the saying, garbage in, garbage out. It is exactly this, right? You don't collect real data, even though you feel like, oh, we did the data collection thing and everything is awesome. But it's not really like that. And I think when we're talking smart manufacturing today and really cool AI tools is exactly things that can enable really cool stuff around this. And I'll give you a real life example. And I won't talk through Nextbus, but that's a feature we have, but well, I'll talk in general idea. So let's imagine we have a shop floor employee that instead of filling out the form, is literally talking to his phone saying, I have a fault in machine number 2, it's not turning on. And the AI will read this like unstructured words in, by the way, no matter what language. So if he wants it in German or in Hebrew or in English or whatever, right? And will fill the form automatically. So you delete the barrier of language and you delete the barrier of like dropping down and making it hard. And we should always focus, at least in my opinion, on how to reduce the friction in this data collection. And this will get us to the next step of getting it in real time, of course, and getting real visibility into our processes because we collect data. And by the way, connecting to machines, of course, you get real-time visibility, right? You connect with MQTT to a machine, you get the data, everything is awesome. But you can't connect like to a human brain. There's a gap there that you need to somehow like cross this chasm, and you need to find tools to do that. That's my like humble opinion about that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting that you actually mentioned this idea, because I've seen that firsthand in my other life when I was still, an integrator, where if you build these, these sort of like tools and you expect operators to always, follow the rules that you put for them, in my experience, they always find maybe they're going to do that for the first week, 2 weeks, first month, after that, they realize that, you know what, actually, if I select the first option, nothing bad actually happens. The machine still keeps running. I still keep producing product. So they naturally default to just saying, okay, click, 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 and then they can move
Exactly.
on with their.
And there's an
Right.
interesting tension here, by the way. Us as, let's say, integrators, managers, right? We want the most amount of fields, because then we can analyze more things. But the more fields we add, the harder it is for the employee to get together, and the risk of not getting data at all is higher, right?
Oh,
So
yes.
we need to find tools to get this data without getting the friction, and that's a tight like rope to walk on. And I really believe that we're on a tipping point where, like, 2025 or of course 2030 technologies will allow that to happen.
Oh, yes, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm also, really excited about AI in this space. And I think also, the other way around, right? By the way, when we look at, manufacturing operations today, there's also, a gap between knowledge that actually is coming from the business down to the shop floor, right? There's also that, friction whereby the operators are really, working without context, working in different silos and things like that. And they don't have the knowledge that they need to really, make decisions that they need to make at the right time, right? So maybe from your experience working with manufacturers, what do you see as the core challenges that companies face in actually delivering this operational knowledge to their workforce?
I think that I've learned this term not too long ago, and I should have learned it before. I haven't known the word, but it's called tribal knowledge. I think tribal knowledge is an enormous issue, right? Like almost every factory today has a Bob or a Johan or a Danny or whatever, that he's like, for the past 40 years fixed those CNC machines, right? And put on the tooling and did the setup, and he knows from A to Z the SOP in his bones. But the problem is that those Bobs and Johans and Dannys are retiring someday, right? And that's a good thing. They need to rest. We want them to rest, and they retire with the knowledge. And the multiplying bad factor here is that the new Bobs are Gen Zers, and they're coming for a 2-3 year term, and then they're looking for the next job. And we're seeing the length of like median time in a job getting shorter and shorter. So the tribal knowledge is not only not getting passed, but it's actually not getting created anew. And that's an enormous issue. And I think today is a golden point in time where we're either winning or losing on getting this tribal knowledge and getting to the newer generation. And it's all about systemizing, right? How do we get this data from their head to the, I almost said paper, right? To the tablet, right? Or to the database. And that's an enormous effort to go through. And we need to find tools to do that. And again, here as well, AI is an awesome opportunity to take into that, right? So take a video, click a button, get an SOP. That's the type of things that we do for this to happen. And it's such a big of a risk, I think, today, that it's like a risk that can shut off customers. And I saw factories that, because X like entered the name, right? Went on a vacation, suddenly they can't go from one beer bottle type to another beer bottle type, and now we're waiting. And that's an enormous issue and a great risk that we need to mitigate.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you there. And I think also what I see as, a big challenge also is that aspect of having to, train new workforce, to operate at the level that a Bob or a Johan was operating on. It really becomes a bottleneck, because sometimes it takes months or even years if you're dealing in like really complex, process industries, or where for someone to really confidently, take decisions, they may need to be there for like 5 years or so. And this is also where I see, AI really playing a big role in kind of like really, removing that bottleneck of having to spend years and years just, training someone to get to a point where they could actually productively contribute to operations.
I want to take what you said and like say something that I really object to. I really hate the word training, and I'll explain. Not in a bad way, right? So,
yes.
I told you I came from the training industry. That's what I did for 20 years. I made my career there, and about, let's say, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I understood that training is dead. And the reason is, you're getting new employees. They're there for 3 years, and if it takes 2 years to train them, you get a net time of 1 year. I'm not even talking about the cost of training them, right? So we need to stop talking about training and talking about performance support, right? How do we make them do the thing that they need to do the day they're coming to our facility, and not after a training period, right? And like you said, I totally agree. AI is a core technology that can help us with that, right? Whether it's like taking the knowledge from the Bobs, or whether it's creating new knowledge automatically out of the unstructured data that we built inside the systems, right? But let's think about it. Let's say if I'll ask you a question like, how do I change the Xerox printer, that's what I'm looking at here, right? Toner. How do I do that? You click a button, you get like YouTube on top of it, right? But in outside our factories, how do I connect this connector to this connector? It's only proprietary data. And it's crazy to me that we don't have tools like YouTube or Wikipedia or Google with our technical knowledge. I think that's the core thing here. Now, the problem is creating all of this data, right? So Google or Wikipedia is like millions of people building it, and we have only 100 employees. So we need AI to help us build this with 100 employees.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's such a mindset shift, right? If you think about it, because it requires, companies to really start think about, workforce in a fundamentally different way, because like, as we have, really spoken about, companies they value, people who stay long into the company, right? Like 20 years. That's been the approach, to try and retain talent for as long as possible. And that's 100% okay. But no, it seems like companies should start to think about how they create a new kind of workforce that is augmented by digital tools. And I think it's such a mindset shift. Well, how would you say companies should start looking at structuring that approach? How should they be approaching that new reality, as it were?
I think hoping for the best and assuming the worst is the thing, right? So hoping to be able to retain and doing the things, right? Getting the compensation and getting the tools and help. We want to retain people. It comes with an upside, of course, but assuming we won't be able to, because the market is like this, because the employees are like this, because that's life, right? So we're doing everything to retain while using digital tools, assuming we won't be able to retain. And if you do both, you'll probably get the best of both worlds.
Oh yes, absolutely. Fascinating. Now, Miki, I would like us to turn into, how Next Plus addresses, some of these challenges that we have raised here. So on your website, you really describe your platform as the AI-driven nexus of human operations management and execution. Can you maybe kind of like just take a step back and first of all, describe or define for us what is the Next Plus platform, and kind of like talk to us about the concept behind how you sort of like rethink that relationship between work instructions, the worker, and organizational knowledge.
Sure. So I'm doing my best not to use like 3-letter acronyms, right? Everybody's that's an MES with an IoT connection to GRZ, and so we're trying our best not to use those, because it always comes with the baggage, whether good or whether bad, right? So when you say MES, people think it will take a really long time to implement. It will cost $1 gazillion or euros, right? So it comes with the baggage. So we're let's not use any like acronym. So we see the world in like 4 main pillars that we're doing. The first one is digital work instructions, and that's like we said, we show the employee every step of the way what to do, and those could be man-made or could be automatically AI generated from content that we collected from users doing stuff on the software, right? So that's one pillar. The second pillar is data collection. We collect data from 3 main vectors. The one is the employee himself. He clicks a button, we get a data point. Miki Shaposhnik did this, right? Where it's good, it's bad, but we know it happened. The second one is we can ask him questions. So we give him forms. And here, AI augmentation is crazy. So for example, like I said earlier, you can talk to it. It will automatically generate structured data from unstructured data. But one of the coolest use cases here, we have customers that just click a button, right? They take an image of a machine with an HMI or just an analog gauge, and it reads it with AI and gets the data into the system. So even without connecting to the machines, whether with MQTT or OPC, you get the data from the machine. And a lot of factories have islands of data, so we collect those islands using those types of technologies. And the third, of course, is connecting to machines, using MQTT and OPC and APIs and SQL servers and all of the bells and whistles. So we show what to do, we collect the data. The third thing is analytics. And of course, we sprinkle a lot of AI here as well, because we're truly an AI first company, right? We're trying to use AI in a practical way for any one of those pillars. And the idea here is that us as operations people or quality people or engineering departments, I don't want 3 IT geniuses and a BI bachelor, like, I don't know, a genius to build a chart that's saying first pass yield or like best time to work at, things like that, or MQTT or MTBF, right? And you just ask a question, it knows your data, it analyzes it, you get the answer here. And the fourth one that I think is the most underrated and our like best selling tool is tools for engineering departments to build those SOPs. So like we said, tribal knowledge. I want to take a video of Bob and Johan, click a button, get an SOP. And that's crazy for 2 reasons. Because first of all, it cuts on engineering time about 80%, right? So that's like cost reduction, that's nice. But the interesting part that we suddenly saw on our customers is that there were SOPs that they didn't write because they thought they're not important enough to actually give someone to do. And suddenly when the cost is pretty much zero, you get a lot of new SOPs and your factory is riding to a new level that you haven't even thought you can be at, because you suddenly have SOPs for everything, because the cost of creating SOPs is net zero. So that's pretty much it. Showing things to do, collect data, analyze, build tools to do that.
100%. I mean, this is really fascinating. And I would like us to take a step back also, and maybe this is the part where you're going to sort of like expand for us on what you mean by anti-MES. Basically, what I would like to understand is why is that important to approach manufacturing execution in such a way? Because myself, so I'm more of a PLC programming guy, so I come from like embedded systems development from low level coming up. So I don't have much experience with MES, but as I started to interact with a lot of MES systems, what became clear to me, the reason why platforms like yours are so powerful is because it seems to me like the MES is this huge monolith that is built and done. That's it. You build it once and then that's done. And then you have to sort of like try to fit your operations around it, right? So you don't have the agility, you don't have sort of like that flexibility to really address the problems as they arise. So I'd like to get your sense on why, in your case, is it super important to approach this problem in an anti-MES way?
I love what you just said. So the big monolith is exactly the problem, right? So it comes, of course, with the cost, and we'll talk about it in a second. But I think that today's manufacturers, and even like the high runners, right, food and beverage or whatever, in today's economy, almost everybody is becoming low volume, high mix. So for me, low volume is different than your low volume. That's okay. It could be 1,000,000 or 100 pieces. It doesn't matter. But we need to be more, I'm talking about like the outcome of my manufacturing, to be more custom tailored, more shorter runs, because you want to be more like for more types of customers, and that's how you make money today, right? So because our factories are becoming more custom built, and by the way, the coolest part is like Coca-Cola had, like in Israel, I'm not sure about in Germany, but had a bottle with like different names on it, and you can buy like a Miki bottle or a 𝗧𝗶𝗺𝗀𝘀 bottle or a Johan bottle, right? And I thought about how hard was it to do this, right? They're like pushing out millions of bottles a day. So how are they doing it? And so in every industry. So because our manufacturing processes become more divergent, we need tools to be more divergent. And if you bought an MES or a machine, let's not say MES, right? If you bought a machine, that's a monolith. It can create only 1.5 liter Coca-Cola bottles. That's what it does. And now, like, the market went into a liter bottle. That's what the market buys. So you need to buy a new machine. And that's crazy to me. And with machines, it's harder. But with software, to build software that are like monolithic, can't be changed without like 5 programmers for 10 years, for me, it's mind-boggling. I came from the agility of software, and we're trying to bring those values into our product, right? And this monolicity is exactly what we're like tackling with being the anti-MES MES. And we're calling the anti-MES MES because, with that said, we are an MES, right? You need to connect to machines and build forms and have work orders and like the whole thing around it, but you can build it and like add things and subtract things without calling us. That's the cool part about it.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, one of the other things that you emphasize, on as far as the AI aspect, within your platform is the idea that it is, constantly learning and generating insights.
Mhm.
Can you sort of like maybe go a bit deeper into explaining to us on exactly how that AI layer within your platform actually works, right? What data does it collect, learn from, and how does it, do the optimization, and how does it surface all of these insights to the operators?
Sure. So we see AI again as a tool, right? And it can surface a different modules inside the system. And I'll give you just a few examples so we get the idea of how like the AI learning is built into the system. So fault reports is like my most loved example, right? So every factory has a fault report, whether it's a small CNC shop that someone writes why the CNC stopped, whether it's Coca-Cola, why we're not pushing out like Coke out of the line, right? And fault reports has two sides. The one that we talked about is data collection. So we use AI to understand unstructured and structure it into those fields. So that's one side of how do we use AI to learn and structure data. But the other side, we suddenly have a lot of data created, right? So every fault report, someone filled it. We have a line, right, in the tables that said the machine stopped for 87 minutes because the camera was stuck or it was dirty and we recalibrated it and yada, 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 right? So we get this data. By the way, the coolest part, again, we're killing language. So until now, you had to have it like in one language, no matter what. And if you're multi like national or in a country where you have like multinationality, that's a problem. And in Israel, we have three main languages, four actually, but three are like the core, right? And you want to make it easier for them to fill it out. So we suddenly have like multilingual data, unstructured. And then me as a new employee, I can come and use like we have an SKI tool and use like an agent to ask it, the camera is not seeing any bottles. What should I do? And it uses the mental model. It's funny to say mental model, like the AI mental model, right? Of all of the faults until today, and tells you, oh, the most probable cause is like camera, like lint. Take off the lint of the camera, recalibrate it, go on. Try it. Did it work? Yes, good. No, okay. The second option is this. And when I hit a wall, then I say, okay, call the expert. And then you suddenly see like a 20 to 50% reduction in calling experts, like calling the Bobs or the Johans of the factory, or even worse, calling the vendor of the machine because it's stuck and sending the vendor from Germany to France, or that's an enormous cost. And only by like utilizing the data that you already have in this way, you suddenly can have an enormous cost reduction on your shop floor. So that's one example. And the second one is about like SOP creation. I talked about it a bit, so I won't indulge you in the full explanation again, but how do we use AI to get the knowledge out of those Bobs and Johans? I think that's key to like manufacturing perseverance in 2025. Because literally, I think in 5 years, there will be factories that won't know how to work. And even though, let's say, even smaller like manufacturing facilities, Bob is the owner, Bob wants to retire, no one knows how to run this CNC shop or how to run this like sheet metal shop. And if you're going into like regulated, let's say pharmaceuticals or medical devices or aerospace or defense, that's like a tenfold problem because the regulator wants you to have SOPs and you don't have the money to build those and you have the knowledge to build it from, right? So those are the types of things that we do to use AI and learning in one way to give value to our customers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really crazy to think, that literally that's a factory becoming smarter each day. Because I mean, to your point, like your example for the faults that you're using, where once you give it that feedback, that AI to say, okay, actually this is not the the fault, or this is not what I'm actually expecting. That's new information for it, and it learns every day. So you actually have a factory that gets smarter by the day, not like this static intelligence that we are used to, where a PLC only knows how to control in a certain way, and MES always knows how to schedule in a specific way. But now we've got something that actually gets smarter every day, and it speaks to the ROI or the value of investing in such a system is really in my view, incalculable, because you're actually building up on the value each day as you go by. So that's really crazy to
Totally right.
know.
I want to take you to another place that it's always uncomfortable to talk about, and I'll be gentle here. But
Yes.
if we'll ask Elon Musk, how does manufacturing look like in 10 years? Let's say 2035, right? So he's talking about humanoid robots. And I agree. I'm not, of course, we probably disagree, me and Elon, of course, right? So I'm on the same level, right? So me and Elon disagree on the amount of humanoid robots until 2035 or 2040, depends where. But those humanoid robots will need the knowledge to do the things. So it's actually the same problem. So roboticizing or automating our lines won't always cover this gap. So we still need to take this knowledge and systemize it, whether for another human or for a robot, right? So that's a core issue of what we're talking about.
100%. Totally agree with you on that one. 100%. So yeah, maybe now, going back to current reality, as you know, obviously right now, manufacturing is really messy and a complex ecosystem. We have got legacy, systems. You've got your ERP systems, which means that even, advanced systems, like, NX Plus still need to play, well with whatever exists within, the shop floor. So I want you to get a sense on your sort of like the IT OT integration capability of your platform with existing technologies. How do you integrate with these different systems?
Great question. So we see ourselves as like an open architecture, right? We're like the middle, because we're the anti-MES, and we need to connect to all types of things. And you like touched the hard point about like all legacy systems, right? Suddenly you have like a machine that has only RS485, right? Or things like that. And you need to do something about it. So we're a software company, so we don't have any appliances, but we play really nicely with other software companies like HiveMQ, of course, and connect to all of those like protocols. So for me, we use MQTT, of course, with HiveMQ, or OPC or we have an API or an SQL server. And on the other side of this would probably be sitting an appliance that talks with RS485 or 232 or whatever, or Modbus or whatever. And our data structure is agile enough to be compliant with all of those types of new machinery. So we get new customers daily, and suddenly that's a CNC shop or like something like a plastic manufacturer or whatever. We don't care what's the machine. We get tags, like data from it, on the different types of protocols, right? And then we just push it into the right places inside our software. The last part I want to talk about is with IT and OT is like all of the cybersecurity issues around that. And that's an enormous issue as well. And we see three types of customers, right? So smaller manufacturers, they're like, no worries, connect this cable, everything is working, right? And we're connecting from AWS in the United States to his CNC machine in Germany, and everybody's happy, right? The second one are more diligent, and they're either using things like diodes. I'm not sure that's like the word everybody's using, right? Okay, so it is. Diodes or specials like WAFs and firewalls and things like to connect the OT and IT networks, but still then like the MES is sitting in the IT network connected to the OT network. The problem with that is that it's a one-way street, right? We can only read data, and that's okay. That's in most use cases, that's enough, but we can't write data because of this diode, right? And that's part of the thing. And the third type of customers that we're seeing more and more, and we're talking about more of like the enterprise type of customers, they're installing the MES on the OT side. And they're doing like a VPN from IT to OT, but only to the MES. And that's an architecture we haven't seen a lot before, and it's starting to gain more and more traction because they see the value of connecting our solution to the machines. And then they want it to be in the same network without having the problem of like interconnectability between the two networks. That's what we see a lot.
That's super interesting to know, actually, that there's companies that are approaching it that way, because I mean, to your point, we've always known MES to live in that level
IT OT type of world, right?
kind of like whether it's the DMZ or something like that. That's super interesting. But talking about enterprise companies, I think one of the biggest challenges that they face is that of scaling a solution, because to your point, you may have one site or one line where you've got some Modbus devices, so maybe it may take a certain amount of effort for you to integrate your smart operations into that, but replicating that across different many sites that you've got different systems, different sort of like workflows. This is where kind of like it becomes sort of like a bottleneck as far as scaling is concerned. So I want you to speak to us on exactly how do you solve that issue where you allow an enterprise company to scale fast and implement the smart operations, at the same time have the flexibility to address those challenges that are only specific to that particular line or that particular site?
Great question. So the first thing that comes to mind when I'm talking about like scaling globally, and we have quite a few like global customers, is language. I talked about it earlier, and when we're talking about scalability, I think that is crazy key. And we have a really cool customer. I can't say the name, of course, it's a public podcast, but let's say an American company that suddenly decided to start a new line in the East with a subcontractor, right? And they're an assembly line, right? Like human beings connecting PCBs to machine parts and things like that. And they had almost $100,000 budget for translating from English to the language of their subcontractor.
Oh, wow.
And we're like, wait, there's a button, right? Click this button, choose the language, click done. They sent it literally 5 minutes after that to their subcontractor and started working the day after. So I think barriers, and the first barrier, we'll talk about a few more, but the first barrier is language should be eradicated from the world, right? Again, AI as a tool to help us eradicate challenges in doing things, for in this case scaling globally, right? By the way, they did it, it worked. We haven't got any percentage out of the 100,000. That's a shame, right? Just kidding. So that's one. The second one is, let's say again, IT OT architecture. So when you have multiple sites, cloud is not a filthy word anymore, right? Because you want everyone to connect, and there are different types of ways to go about it. So we have different architectures, whether it's one server and everybody going to it, or servers on each site locally connecting to our cloud site. So there's a lot of ways to go about it. Of course, it comes with like cost less, costs more, better for larger organization, better for smaller. You have like a lot of questions to ask here, but when you try to scale, you have really cool solutions to enable that. And I think today scaling is 100-fold easier than it was earlier, let's say 2 years ago. I'm not talking about even 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And scaling doesn't have to be internal, right? So when I'm trying to use subcontractors and give you our knowledge of Bob and Johan to their Bob and Johan, again, is 10-fold easier because we can give them the right SOPs in the right language in their context.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that make sense?
100%. And then maybe if to go a bit deeper, maybe more product specific question, do you have the ability to templatize things, right, that could be rolled out across the organization?
That's exactly it. So sometimes we have like the same SOP, different language, or a different machine, right? A bottling machine from one vendor or a different vendor. The SOP is pretty much the same. You just need to change like specific things for this facility or this facility. But you build it once, and then you like only use this template, exactly like you said. Template is exactly the right word, and then you just tweak it to work for this as well.
Oh yes, 100%. So yeah, maybe to make it a bit more concrete for our audience here, could you maybe share some? I mean, you've already shared some, an example there. Could you maybe share some real-world examples of where NextPlus platform is used today, and talk to us about what the challenges were and how did they get value from that?
Sure. So one of the places that we're pretty new in, right? So we just actually finished our FDA CFR 21 Part 11 compliance. So we're headed like full steam ahead into pharmaceuticals and medical devices. Until now, we were really big in aerospace, and those types of regulated industries. And now we're going into pharmaceuticals and medical. And we started a few first implementations. And again, I've learned a new word, right? So I was using EDHR, device history records. That's from like medical devices. And suddenly I've learned EBR, electronic batch record. And I was shocked. Like, I can't name names, of course, but really, really big companies that use paper for batches of like things you can buy off the shelf at your like pharmaceutical shop, right? And the change to EBR, and we saw like their Gantt chart of like when we'll be able to move to electronic batch records, and like they have like a 2-year goal. And I'm like, what do you mean by 2 year, right? We're talking in weeks, not even in months, right? And I saw the shock on the customer's face when we had like a pilot, and in like 6-7 weeks, don't catch me like on the exact number, it was running on the shop floor, connected to their machines, like to all the PLCs with thousands of tags, and they're connected to the batch record, and all of the like manual forms are inside, and you have a batch record ready, you click print, it's done. And it's all touching on the non-MES or the non-EBR. Let's say it's the same thing. If we stop thinking in like solutions of 2015 and start thinking in solutions of 2025, suddenly our all perspective is shifted, because the time frames are different, the ROI is different, everything is 10 and 100-fold, and it's all, not all, most of it is thanks to like the AI things that are happening, and how fast our vendors like NextPlus or our competitors can bring them and get them to bring value to our customers. Because ChatGPT is cool, but I can't use ChatGPT to do an EBR. But if I can use the technology behind ChatGPT to make an EBR much faster, that's awesome.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really goes back to what we spoke about earlier, right? This mindset shift, right? Because, to your point, currently, manufacturers are still thinking in that 2015 way of saying, oh, okay, actually, I need to gradually improve my process. I'll take 2 years to complete this. But now it's not really the time to really, move at that kind of pace, right? Because AI allows you to really, leapfrog, or rather, really change things faster than you thought possible before.
I'll give you a very different example that just like popped into mind. So before COVID, right, vaccines were a thing that took 15 to 25 years to get to market, right? And suddenly in COVID, we got a vaccine in 9 months from ideation to full-blown production.
Yeah.
And if we're not moving all of our processes to support this speed of change, we're going to lag behind until we're just left behind.
100%. So yeah, now to maybe conclude this conversation, for manufacturing leaders who maybe also buy into this idea of anti-MES, and they see this is really the way to go. What is the advice that you give to them on how to start sort of like evaluating platforms, and how should they get started thinking about how to dismantle the MES as it were?
I'm going to say something that is harsh. I think not doing pilots is the way to go. And I saw a gazillion pilots, not only ours, competitors and other solutions, that they start, they end, they die, right? And I think buy-in is the most important thing in the possibility to win. So you need to find solutions that don't cost so much that you can buy them on day one, smaller, not the full size, that you can even buy them smaller and grow with them, right? And start doing. And if you fail, that's okay. Not the pilot failed, because failing pilots is easy, but saying I failed the project, that's way harder. And when you lock yourself into those types of things, the possibility to win is way higher. So I'm a like a bet big, win big type of guy, I think, and I really believe in that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we'll definitely provide links to your social networks, to your website, and any material that you may want to share with our audience. But Miki, this has been such a fascinating conversation. I really enjoyed my session here with you today. Do you perhaps have any final words for our audience on where they could find you on, or if there's anything that you want to say?
So first of all, 𝗧𝗧, thank you so much. That was so much fun. Like I appreciate really great conversations and especially on things that I love talking about. So I can do this like another full hour. And thank you so much for the great questions and the hospitality here. I'm on LinkedIn. Where's everybody? Right? Where else is everybody today in 2025? I don't know. I need to like start my Instagram or something, but I'm not good enough in that. And that's it. That was a pleasure. Thank you so much, 𝗧𝗧.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.